Beyond boundaries, the day everything changed. I want you to do something for me right now. Stop whatever you are doing. Put your phone down, close the other tabs, turn down the noise, and just for the next few minutes, give me your complete attention. Because what I am about to share with you is something that nobody, not your parents, not your teachers, not your doctor, not your pastor, not your favorite motivational speaker, has ever told you. And by the time I finish, you are going to understand something that will change the way you see everything. Your life, your marriage, your health, your finances, your faith, and most importantly, you are going to understand for the first time why the gap between the life you sense you were meant to live and the life you are actually living exists, and why it was never your fault. Let me tell you about Sarah and David, and I want you to really listen, because there is a very good chance their story is your story. Sarah grew up fast. She was an only child. Her father died when she was 9, and after that her mother moved from relationship to relationship. Some of those men were not kind. Sarah learned early to be strong, to be self-sufficient, to not need too much. And somewhere in all of that, she developed the deepest longing that would define her entire life. She wanted to help people. Specifically, she wanted to help women. Women who were struggling, the way her mother struggled. Women who felt trapped, the way she had watched her mother feel trapped. That was Sarah's calling. She knew it at 15. She felt it at 20. And then society told her something different. Get a career, get a degree, get a stable income, be practical, be responsible. So Sarah got a career, a good one, a respectable one, the kind that looks impressive on paper. And every year she told herself, next year I will do what I actually want to do. Next year. But next year the prices went up, and her salary did not. Every year she tried to find a way out. Every year something pulled her back. The mortgage, the car payment, the health insurance, a kid's school. It was like the harder she tried to escape, the tighter the walls got, like something or someone was making absolutely certain that no matter how hard she worked, she could never quite break free. And the thing that broke her heart most was not the career. It was the kids. Every morning she dropped them at school and drove to a job she had talked herself into believing was necessary. Every evening she came home, just in time for dinner, homework, and bedtime. The years were moving, and she was missing them. Not because she wanted to, because the system had made missing them the only option she could afford. The calling she felt at 15 to help people, to sit with hurting women and be the steady presence nobody had been for her mother, was still there, waiting. David grew up believing in America. Not naively, genuinely. He believed in the dream, the one they talked about in school. Work hard, play by the rules, and the life you want is available to you. David worked hard. From the time he was 12 years old, he worked hard. School, sports, practice, homework. More practice, more homework. He gave 18 years of his life to that system, and he did it willingly, because he believed at the end of it was freedom. But somewhere in the middle of all that working, he noticed something. That the harder he worked, the further away freedom seemed. That every milestone he reached revealed another milestone he was supposed to reach. Good grades led to more studying. More studying led to college. College led to a master's degree. A master's degree led to a job market that looked at his qualifications and shrugged. David graduated with a master's degree into a market that had no place for him. He spent the first year after graduation applying for jobs that paid less than he had made waiting tables. He started to wonder what exactly he had been working toward. And then there was football. David had been good, really good. Good enough that for a few years the dream of professional money had felt real, tangible, within reach, until one game, one hit, one moment where his knee said no, and 18 years of work toward one version of the dream ended, just like that. On a field, on a Tuesday afternoon. He recovered, he moved on, he found a job, he built a career, he married Sarah, he bought the house, he did everything right. But somewhere inside him, a question never fully went away. Is this what freedom is supposed to feel like? Because it felt like for his entire life, someone had been dangling freedom just far enough ahead of him that he had to keep running just to stay close, like a carrot in front of a donkey, like someone was holding his puppet strings, and no matter how hard he pulled, he could never quite break free. He had a master's degree, he worked overtime, he provided, he showed up after his kids were in bed. They had been married 14 years, and they were sitting at their dinner table on their phones, 3 feet apart and miles away, not fighting, not unhappy exactly, just absent, from each other, from themselves, from the life that was happening right in front of them while they stared at screens. The kids were in bed, the dinner was getting cold. Sarah put her phone down, looked at David, at the man she chose, at the man she fell in love with in a coffee shop 14 years ago when he made her laugh so hard she spilled her drink, and neither of them cared. She could not remember the last time either of them laughed like that. She picked up her keys. "I'm going to run to the store," she said. David barely looked up. "Okay," he said, and went back to his phone. Sarah walked to her car, sat in the driver's seat, and did not move. She did not go to the store. She just sat in her own driveway, engine running, in the dark, and let herself, for the first time in years, be completely honest. She thought about the calling she had buried, the women she had never helped, the kids she was missing, the career she had talked herself into, the prices that kept going up, the salary that never did, the walls that seemed to get tighter every time she tried to find a way out. And through the tears, a thought rose up from somewhere so deep, it felt like it came from another version of herself entirely. 3 words: "This is not my life." Inside the house, David cleared the plates, checked on the kids, came back downstairs, sat in the living room, television on, not watching, just sitting in the quiet, with the blue light flickering across his face, thinking about the puppet strings, thinking about the carrot and the donkey, thinking about 18 years of work and a knee and a master's degree and a job market that shrugged, thinking about overtime and a mortgage and a retirement account that was supposed to mean something, but just felt like more running towards something he could not quite name. He turned off the television, sat in the silence, and asked himself the question the system never wanted him to ask. Is this it? 2 people, 1 house, 1 marriage, 1 life that somewhere along the way stopped feeling like theirs, and neither of them could tell you exactly when it happened, or why, or how to fix it, because nobody had ever shown them what was actually going on. I need to show you something that explains everything, and I want you to stay with me, because what I am about to tell you is not a theory. It is documented history, and it is the most important thing you have never been taught. In 1929, a man named Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud and the architect of modern public relations, discovered something that would change the world forever. He discovered that if you could identify the deepest longing of a person and attach it to your agenda, you did not need to convince them of anything. They would come to you. He tested this by getting women to smoke cigarettes. He attached smoking to the idea of freedom and independence. And women who longed for both, lit up by the millions. Millions of them, eventually dying from the consequences. Bernays wrote about it proudly as one of his greatest achievements. He called it the engineering of consent. And every institution that wanted control took note. Every corporation, every government, every system that had something to gain from directing human behavior studied what Bernays did and adopted it, not because they cared about people, but because it worked, and because control and money were all they cared about. That is the template. Find the longing, hijack it, redirect it, profit from it. And here is what you need to understand with absolute clarity right now. They did not stop at cigarettes, not even close. They looked at that template and they asked themselves one question: where else can we use this? And the answer was everywhere. They understood that the strongest unit in any society, the unit most resistant to control, was the family. A strong family, rooted in faith, connected to community, with a mother and father present in their children's lives, was extraordinarily difficult to manipulate. They had their own values, their own economy, their own identity. They did not need the system to tell them who they were. And that was a problem. So the same forces set about solving it. They engineered social movements that pulled families apart. They got both parents into the workforce. which doubled the tax base and halved the time parents spent with their children. They got those children into the school system earlier and longer, where they could be shaped, and they called all of it progress and freedom, while the family, the most powerful force for genuine human freedom that has ever existed, was quietly, systematically dismantled. Think about Sarah, dropping her kids at school every morning, driving to a job she did not choose, missing the years she cannot get back, not because she wanted to, because the system made it the only option she could afford. That was not an accident. And here is the question that should stop you cold. If they were willing to do that to families, what were they willing to do with everything else? Because they did not stop there, not even close. They asked themselves, where else can we use this? And the answer was everywhere. Your longing for knowledge, hijacked by a school system designed not to educate you, but to make you manageable. John D. Rockefeller, one of the primary architects of the modern American public school system, had an education commissioner named Frederick Gates who wrote this in 1913. In our dream, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hands. Perfect docility, our molding hands. This was not a secret memo. This was a published document. And the Rockefellers did not send their own children to public school because they knew exactly what it was built for. It was not built for their children. It was built for yours. 18 years. Studying, testing, sitting still, following instructions, waiting for the bell, being told that at the end of all that compliance, freedom was waiting. Did anyone teach him how his mind actually works? Did anyone teach him how to deliberately design the life he wanted? Did anyone teach him the proven science of how human beings transform? Did anyone teach him how to identify and rewrite the subconscious stories controlling 80% of his behavior? No, because a person who knows those things cannot be controlled. Your longing for health hijacked. In 1910, a report called the Flexner Report, funded by Rockefeller and Carnegie, systematically dismantled natural medicine, holistic healing, herbal treatment, anything that could not be patented, anything that could not be profited from, and what replaced it was a system built entirely around pharmaceutical intervention, not healing, intervention, because a healed patient is a lost customer. The Bible says, "Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you?" 1 Corinthians 6:19. Someone turned that temple into a factory, and when the factory broke down, they sold you the maintenance contract. Your longing for truth hijacked. Today, 6 corporations control approximately 90% of everything you watch, read, and hear. 6 sets of owners with 6 sets of interests, deciding what is news, what is normal, what you should want, what you should fear, and what you should never think about too deeply. Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World, said this: "The perfect dictatorship would have the appearance of democracy, a prison without walls, in which the prisoners would not dream of escape, a system of slavery, where through consumption and entertainment, the slaves would love their servitude." He wrote that in 1931. Look around. Your longing for meaning hijacked by an entertainment industry designed not to enrich you, but to consume your time, your energy, and your attention until there is nothing left for the life you were actually meant to live. Studies show the average person will spend 9 full years of their life watching television. 9 years at 24 hours a day, which equals 27 years of 8-hour working days. 27 years of your one life gone. Your longing for spiritual truth hijacked. The revolutionary Jesus, who turned over the tables of the money changers, who told the powerful exactly what they did not want to hear, who said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free," was slowly replaced in many institutions with a domesticated version that made people easier to manage. Obey, comply, be patient. Your reward is in heaven. The Apostle Paul warned about exactly this. See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition rather than on Christ. Colossians 2:8. And your longing for financial freedom hijacked. A system that told David that success means a good job, a mortgage, 2 car payments, and a retirement account, built those products in a specific sequence designed to ensure that the vast majority of everything he earns never actually becomes his. It passes through his hands on its way to someone else's. The average American family will pay more in interest over their lifetime than they will ever accumulate in wealth. David was not taught this in school. He was not told this by his doctor. He did not hear it from his pastor, because every single institution that was supposed to protect him was built by or captured by the same system that profits from his not knowing. So here is the full picture. From the moment you were born, they were waiting. The schools shaped your mind. The medical system shaped your body. The media shaped your perception of reality. The entertainment industry consumed your time. The religious institutions shaped your spiritual authority. The financial system captured your labor and your future. And they pulled the family apart to make sure nobody was home long enough to figure any of it out. You were not just influenced, you were surrounded, from every direction, before you were old enough to know it was happening. Sarah and David did not end up at that dinner table on their phones 3 feet apart and miles away because they failed. They ended up there because they followed every instruction from every institution that was supposed to guide them, and the system succeeded on them exactly as designed. You did not end up where you are because something is wrong with you. You ended up here because everything went exactly right for them. Sit with that. Really sit with it, because that truth, as painful as it is also the most liberating thing you will ever hear. Because if someone else wrote your story, then someone else's story is all that needs to change. Not you. Your story, and that can be rewritten, starting today. Now, before I show you how I need to address something, because if you are like most people, you have tried to change before. You have read the books, taken the courses, set the goals, made the vision boards, said the affirmations, and felt that initial rush of possibility that slowly, quietly faded, until you were back more or less where you started, and somewhere inside you a voice said, "Maybe this is just who I am. I need you to hear me clearly." That voice is not the truth. That voice is the system, still working, still managing you, still making sure that even your attempts at freedom stay safely inside its walls. Here is why most programs fail. They work on the surface. They give you new strategies for the 20% of your mind you are consciously aware of, while leaving completely untouched the 80% that is actually running your life. It is like redecorating a prison cell. The furniture looks better, the colors are nicer, but you are still in the same cell, built by the same system, governed by the same story that was written for you before you were old enough to write your own. To truly transform, you cannot work on the surface. You have to go to the root. You have to reach the part of the mind where the original programming lives and rewrite it from the inside out. That is what Beyond Boundaries does, and the science behind why it works is unlike anything you have ever been shown. Your subconscious mind runs approximately 80% of your daily behavior. Your habits, your emotional reactions, your beliefs about money, your beliefs about love, your beliefs about what you deserve and what is possible for someone like you. All of it running silently in the background like an operating system you never knew you had. And here is what makes this extraordinary. That operating system can be upgraded, not slowly, not painfully, not through years of therapy or decades of struggle, through a precise, scientifically documented process that rewrites the story your subconscious believes about you. You have seen what hypnosis can do. A perfectly ordinary person sits in a chair, closes their eyes, and within minutes genuinely, completely believes they are someone else entirely. A president, a billionaire, a world-famous author. They speak differently, walk differently, their confidence changes, their posture changes, their entire way of moving through the world changes instantly. That is not a party trick. That is the subconscious mind receiving a new story and immediately beginning to live it. Now here's what nobody tells you. You have access to that exact same neurological state every single night of your life. In the moments just before you fall asleep, your brain shifts from the busy active state into a deeply relaxed state that neuroscientists call the hypnagogic state. In this state, your critical conscious mind, the part that filters, judges, and rejects new information, stands down. And your subconscious, the part that runs 80% of your life, becomes completely open, like fresh soil, ready to receive a seed. This is the exact window that clinical hypnotherapists target for maximum impact, and you have access to it every single night. This is not New Age thinking. This is documented neuroscience. Dr. Blaselato at the University of Chicago ran a landmark study. He took 3 groups of people. One group physically practiced a skill every single day. One group did nothing, and one group only visualized performing the skill. They never physically practiced. They only imagined it vividly, repeatedly, emotionally. The results were staggering. The visualization group improved almost as much as the group that physically practiced every day, because your brain cannot fully distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. The same neural pathways fire, the same emotions activate, the same subconscious beliefs begin to shift. This is why elite athletes, surgeons, astronauts, and the highest performers in every field use visualization as a core daily practice. And now, so will you. Dr. Gail Matthews at Dominican University proved that people who write down their goals achieve them at a 42% higher rate than people who only think about them. 42% higher. Research published in the journal Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience, using live MRI brain imaging, showed that speaking positive affirmations over yourself literally activates your brain's reward centers and measurably rewires your beliefs. Your words spoken out loud over yourself change your brain, physically, measurably. And psychologist Dan McAdams at Northwestern University spent decades proving that people who deliberately construct a purposeful personal narrative, who consciously write their own story, demonstrate measurably greater well-being, greater resilience, and greater life satisfaction than people who simply live whatever story they were handed. The science is unambiguous. Change the story, and you change the person. The ancient wisdom of the Bible said all of this long before the scientists arrived. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 18.1. 21. Write the vision and make it plain. Habakkuk 2:2. And the Apostle John captured the entire mission in a single breath. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in good health, even as thy soul prospereth. 3 John 1:2. Prosperity, health, a thriving soul. That was always meant to be your story. Someone just made very sure you never learned how to write it. Until now. David's younger brother Mark had been trying to get David's attention for 2 years, sending him videos, links, articles. David dismissed most of it. He loved his brother, but honestly he thought Mark had gone a little down the rabbit hole. Too much internet, not enough real world. Mark had gone through a rough patch a few years back, lost his job, marriage almost fell apart, and then seemingly out of nowhere he had turned it around, completely. David had assumed Mark had just finally gotten his act together. Good for him, but David had his own life to deal with, his own problems, his own hamster wheel. And then on that Wednesday night, while Sarah was sitting in the driveway, Mark called. David almost let it go to voicemail, but something made him pick up. Hey, Mark said, I know you think I'm crazy. I know you've been deleting my links. I'm not calling to send you another video. I'm calling because I'm your brother, and I can hear it in your voice every time we talk that you're exactly where I was 2 years ago. David was quiet. Mark kept going. You remember when everything fell apart for me? The job, the marriage, all of it? David said, yeah. Mark said, you remember that guy I kept sending you? Dan Collier? The one you kept calling conspiracy stuff? David almost laughed. Yeah, he said. Mark said, he is the reason my life is what it is today. I did his 3-day challenge, and something shifted at a level I cannot fully explain, but I can prove. Look at my life, David. Look at it. David was quiet because he had looked at Mark's life, and he could not argue with it. Mark continued, I know you think it is internet stuff. I know you think it sounds like something you have heard before, but listen to me, because I need you to actually hear this. This is not motivation. This is not positive thinking. This is science. Real science. The kind they specifically chose not to teach you in all those 18 years of school. There's a part of your mind, running 80% of your behavior right now, that was programmed before you were old enough to have a say in it. And until you rewrite that programming, you can set all the goals you want, read all the books you want, work all the overtime you want, and end up back in the same place every time. David, you have a master's degree. You work harder than anyone I know. You're a good husband, a good father, and you're miserable. That is not a personal failure, and it can be changed. Dr. Blaselato at the University of Chicago proved that people who only visualized performing a skill improved almost as much as people who physically practiced every day, because your brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Dr. Gail Matthews proved that writing down your goals makes you 42% more likely to achieve them. Research using live MRI brain imaging proved that speaking affirmations over yourself physically rewires your brain. This is not philosophy. This is neuroscience. The same neuroscience that the people who built your school system knew about and made absolutely certain you never learned. Because a person who knows how their own mind works cannot be controlled. David, I am not asking you to believe me. I am asking you to look at my life and ask yourself what changed. Because 2 years ago I was you, and now I am not, and I need my brother to have what I have. David was quiet for a long time. He looked around the living room. The television he was not watching. The retirement account he was funding instead of living. The house full of everything, and somehow still empty. He heard the front door open. Sarah was home. She walked into the living room and looked at him. Something in his face made her stop. He held up his phone. "It is Mark," he said. "He wants us to look at something." Sarah sat down next to him, and for the first time in a long time, they were on the same phone, together. "Send me the link," David said, and Mark did. They did the 3-day challenge that weekend, together. Day 1, they built their character frameworks. For the first time in their lives, they sat down and deliberately defined who they actually were. Not who their parents needed them to be, not who their jobs required them to be, not who the system had designed them to become. Who they actually were. Their values, their gifts, their real desires, the dreams they had buried. David stared at the page for a long time before he wrote a single word. Because the system had trained him to believe that looking inward was weakness. That a real man produces, provides, performs. But slowly he began to write, and something happened that surprised him. It felt like exhaling for the first time in years. Sarah filled 3 pages before she realized she was crying, not from sadness, from recognition, like meeting herself again after a very long absence. The calling she had buried at 15, to help hurting people, to sit with struggling women and be the steady presence nobody had been for her mother, was right there on the page, waiting. Day 2, they wrote their goals, their real goals, not the sensible ones, the ones that made their hearts beat faster just thinking about them. David wrote about building something of his own, something that mattered, something that would outlast him. Sarah wrote about the coaching practice she had always known she was meant to build, helping women the way nobody had helped her mother. They shared what they wrote with each other and sat in the silence afterward. And David reached across the table and took Sarah's hand, and she let him. Day 3, they wrote their stories, their complete lives, in their own words, in their own voices, with their own hands. Using the hero's journey framework from the course, they wrote who they were becoming, how their character would respond to every obstacle, every opportunity, every moment that would test them. They wrote it all, and then, following the instructions, they recorded themselves reading those stories out loud, in their own voices, and every night, in that hypnagogic window, just before sleep, they listened to their own voices. And their subconscious minds, those powerful silent forces, running 80% of their lives, began receiving new stories. And they began living them. It was not instant. It was not always smooth. David pushed through the resistance the system had built in him, against looking inward. Sarah pushed through the doubt the system had built in her, against believing her calling was worth pursuing. But they kept going, because they were doing it together. And slowly, then suddenly, everything changed. Not their circumstances first, them first. And their circumstances had no choice but to follow. Sarah started her coaching practice. She joined the Abundant Life program and got certified. And she started doing what she had always known she was meant to do, sitting with hurting women, women who felt trapped, women whose prices kept going up and salaries never did, women who were missing their kids, women who had buried their calling under a career society told them to want, women exactly like her. On the phone, from home, around her kids' schedule, around her actual life. And those women transformed, the same way Sarah had transformed. And they told other women. And those women called Sarah. And her practice grew, not through advertising, not through a complicated funnel, through the oldest form of marketing that has ever existed. One changed life telling another. David started sharing the 3-day challenge with his affiliate link, not as a salesman, as a man who had found something real and could not stop talking about it, the way Mark could not stop sending him videos. He shared it the way you share anything that changes your life, naturally, honestly, because he had to. And the commissions started coming in, not life-changing at first, but enough to stop the overtime, enough to be home for dinner, actually home, not just physically present, but actually there. And as more people went through the course and transformed and wanted to go deeper, David and Sarah started coaching together, couples, sitting at dinner tables, on their phones 3 feet apart and miles away, exactly where they had been. And the word spread the way truth always spreads when it is real, one changed life at a time. Their coaching practice, built entirely on word of mouth, grew to $1,200 a client and beyond, not because they were salespeople, because they were living proof. Ask Sarah today what really changed, and she does not talk about the money first. She talks about the morning. She says she dropped the kids at school last Tuesday, and instead of driving to a job she didn't choose, she drove home and sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee and her laptop and a client call in an hour. A woman just like her, who needed someone to show her the door, and she sat there in her own home, in her own time, doing the things she knew at 15 she was meant to do. And she thought, this is my life. Ask David what really changed, and he talks about last Saturday, his daughter's soccer game, standing on that field, watching her run, and this time he was not funding it, he was in it, completely, fully, there. No overtime, no puppet strings, no carrot, no donkey, just a father on a Saturday, present in his own life. That is what Beyond Boundaries is really for, not just to change what you do, but to give you back who you are, and who you are to the people you love most. Beyond Boundaries is a 3-day challenge, simple, structured, and built on every principle of human psychology and neuroscience we have talked about today. Day 1, you build your moral character framework, the foundation of who you are becoming, not the version the system designed, the version God intended. Day 2, you develop your goals, your passions, your skills, and the daily reality of your new self. Day 3, you write your complete life story using the Hero's Journey framework. And then, you learn exactly how to lock that story into your subconscious using the proven techniques we showed you today. You record your story in your own voice. You listen to it in that hypnagogic window before sleep. You speak it with your own mouth. You write it with your own hand. And your subconscious begins building your new life from the inside out. This is not another program that teaches you to want more while keeping you inside the same system. It is not motivation without mechanism. It is not inspiration without transformation. It is a precise, science-backed, biblically grounded, complete system for rewriting the story that was written for you without your knowledge or your consent, and replacing it with the one that was always meant to be yours. You get the complete 3-day system. Every exercise, every framework, every proven technique for reaching your subconscious and rewriting your story from the inside out. Now let me tell you what is on the other side of those 3 days. Because Beyond Boundaries is not just a course, it is a doorway. And beyond that doorway, there are 2 paths for those who feel called. The first is our affiliate program. David did not become an affiliate because he wanted a side hustle. He became an affiliate because he could not stop talking about what happened to him. The way Mark could not stop sending him videos. Because when something genuinely changes your life, the most natural thing in the world is to tell the people you care about. We simply built a way for you to get paid for doing what you were going to do anyway. Share Beyond Boundaries. Earn a generous commission for every person you introduce to it. Not overtime, not a second job, just telling the truth about something real. The second path is our certified coaching program. Through the Abundant Life program, you can get certified and do what Sarah does. Sit with people who are exactly where you were. Show them the door. Walk them through it and build a practice around something that actually matters. $1,200 a client and beyond. From home, on your schedule, around your actual life. This is not just a business opportunity. This is a calling. To use your own transformation to light the way for someone else. To be the Mark for someone else's David. To make the call that changes everything. And get paid for doing it. I want to leave you with one final thought. Right now, in this moment, there are 2 versions of your future. In one version, you close this video, you go back to the routine, the comfortable and uncomfortable, the dinner table, the phones, the quiet distance, the life that fits like a shoe that is just slightly too small, not painful enough to change, just tight enough to remind you every single day that something is not right. In the other version, you take 3 days, you do the work, You write your story, and you discover the way Sarah discovered, sitting in her driveway on a Tuesday evening, that the life you have been longing for was never out of reach. It was simply waiting for you to stop living someone else's version of it. The system that programmed you is counting on you closing this video, going back to the scroll, the screen, the quiet settling. It needs you distracted, it needs you consuming, it needs you believing that the gap between the life you feel inside you and the life you are actually living is just the way things are. It is not the way things are, it is the way things were arranged, and it can be unarranged in 3 days. There is a reason you are watching this today, not yesterday, not 10 years ago, today. I do not believe that is an accident. I believe there is a force more powerful than every system we talked about today that has been moving in your life, quietly, persistently, patiently, waiting for this moment. Because the same one who said, "The thief comes to steal and kill and destroy," also said, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." John 10:10. That fullness was always meant for you. The Apostle John wrote the words I want to leave with you today. "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in good health, even as thy soul prospereth." 3 John 1:2. That is not my wish for you. That is God's wish for you. And today, you get to decide whether you are ready to receive it. David is at a soccer game right now. No overtime, no puppet strings, just a father present in his own life. Sarah is at her kitchen table, coffee going cold, because she is on the phone with a woman who needed someone to show her the door, and she is showing her. That is what is waiting for you. Not someday, not when the circumstances are right. Now. 3 days from now. Click below. Take the challenge, write your story, and welcome to life beyond boundaries.